I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
Welcome everybody. This is Team Rabbit Hole Edition 313 featuring Seanín, Friel. Breathe in the crack, as I was told. Welcome everyone. Welcome Jim. Welcome Janine. Welcome everyone in chat.
Hello. That introduction was so trippy. It's like, that is amazing. I could sit here forever listening to this. So good.
It's
so
fun.
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Dude, we've been trying to get this in the works for years. I've known you, not personally, we haven't met, but we've known each other through the internet and stuff for like half a decade or more. Like, I mean, if your kid is 5 or whatever, I mean, I've known you before that. So hot minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say a good 8 years now.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's mind fuck to me. Anyway, let me read this little blip and then we'll get into it. I'm glad you appreciate the music and all that stuff. It's trippy, I know. So this is, as Raphael denoted, episode 313. That's a palindrome, adds up to 7 little holy chakra numbers here. Breathe in the crack. Teacher, mystic, healer, Sagittarius. Join the team as we get to know Seanín, an Irish mystic making the most of her magic, breath, humor, and lived truth. So before we start kind of geeking out and talking about how we know each other and all that jazz, the card I pulled for the episode is the 2 of Wands. And if people aren't familiar with that, it's about making choices. The wands are like the fire of zeal. You're a Sag. There's a whole lot of fire energy and air energy right now in the zodiac moment climate. I dare to choose, gaining perspective, waiting for the right moment. Dare I say this is taken forever and the clocks have aligned. So here he is. Drafting plans and looking out to the future. So is there anything about the 2 of Wands that resonates with where you're at right now, or anything you want to comment on?
It's bang on, actually, Jim. Like the last year and a half, I've been on this like really intensive obstacle course of awakening, and I'm in the refinement stage, and part of that is I'm being shown every day how to make higher and higher and higher choices alongside doing the breath work. And sometimes I feel, but at the minute, it's been all about staying with my own discernment and my own spiritual authority in every moment and not allowing myself to deviate. And that was a big problem I had in the past. And you and I discussed this at one point. You called me dogmatic, and I have held that against you.
You're a Sagittarius, I'm a Gemini. We go about it differently, right? I'm like the little Cupid, and you're like, thus says the Lord. This is how it is. But you're not dogmatic. I should take that back.
But I was at the time, though. You see, no, but this is the thing. You were right, because I was at the time. I went through a period of like grabbing on to other versions of truth and other people's versions of truth, and got waylaid numerous times. Like, we talked about these different iterations that I went through, and it was from just having severe self-doubt. And I think a lot of women struggle with this before they're awake.
Humans.
Yeah, humans in general. And I'm just not there now. I couldn't be more secure.
That's what's up.
What I know, and in my own guidance system now. And all this last couple of weeks, it's been about using it productively and using my voice productively, and not let my energy get pulled. So the 2 of Wands is actually perfect, because it's about that level of like spiritual defense in a way too. You know,
I always think of it as like grab on to, like, there's a Lamborghini going and there's a bullet train going, and you got to get on one. It's kind of like that Batman scene with Joker where he's like, your girlfriend or the people, you got to pick one. It's like you got to choose, and it seems like you've made your choice. And it's not bad for people to use like on webs of belief and dogma. Dogmas just means teaching. So it's like you can use teachings and methods and all that stuff, but there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And dare I say, not that you were never walking the path before, but the way you're walking it now probably feels more embodied, more grounded, more holistic, whatever. Even being a mother now, like, I mean, the front end of that, the back end of that. All right, so and I will say this really quick, so people are like, what the heck is Craic? So she's into breath work, and she's from Northern Ireland, and I was gonna call it "Breathe in the Air," like Pink Floyd's "Breathe" song, like "Breathe in the Air," and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a little cheeky Gemini, and basically I was like, what's a cool slang word in Irish? And it was like "crack," and I was like, you had told me that before, and I was like, all right, so this is not a drug endorsement by any means.
No, we're not talking about butt cracks either. Just to
Right.
clarify.
Exactement. So let's get into it. Like I said, I don't even know how I stumbled upon you. You were doing lives and pulling
I do.
cards. Okay, if you recall, I mean, this is like 8-9 years ago. It's a
Yes,
hot minute.
longer than that, Jim. It was a long time ago. I was doing a collective channeling of Mary Magdalene and various other galactics, and you hopped in.
I remember this now.
And you were like, I can't get off the weed.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't get off the weed. And like Jim and I had this perfectly natural, open conversation. What I really enjoyed about you is that you were just very yourself. Like you've always had that. Like multiple things can move through you, and you are present with yourself at all times and never deterred by anything going on around you. And you became a very familiar, comfortable, and reassuring force inside of a lot of strange stuff that was going on over the last number of years. Like, and you contemplate things similarly to me, where it's like you'll gather all the information. You'll remember it all, I won't, right? But you'll gather all the information and you come up with some really interesting conclusions. So we had lots of discussions, Raphael, not to leave you out, because I have podcasted before and we used to have a lot of discussion about various different things, and it came from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the kind of, as I recall, I might have been going through pot withdrawal even, or I'm like, or deciding to kind of thing, and I was just like in this funk, and I was like, I don't want to, but I'm gonna, like, I have addiction issues, and just kind of desire attachment kind of issues. Everybody does. And you were, I think, something to the effect of, like, you're right, it was a Mary Magdalene thing, and it was galactic, and it was channeling. You were jamming on all cylinders, and you're like, your grandfather's behind you, he doesn't want you smoking, or stuff like that. I don't even remember exactly all the details, but it was just like enough of like high weirdness that I was like, maybe I should, this isn't, I'm not going to channel surf this one. I'll do this one and I'll digest this and see how it goes. I had relapsed after that, so it's not like it was a one and done forever, but I don't smoke currently. And Raphael, enjoy the smoke, speaking of which. He's like, as he sparks up. But yeah, so that's how I stumbled upon you. And like you said, we've been kind of in correspondence for years. Yes. We are on the opposite side of the zodiac, but I think there's this kind of like fun lightness. You do have a moon in Leo like Raphael does, and you have a north node in Taurus like I do. I was looking at your chart. You've actually got so much in Sagittarius. You've got your sun, Saturn. I just had your chart here for a second, but I mean, you're here to teach a lot. But sun, Saturn, Uranus, Mercury, or Venus, like you've got a stellium, as they say. And so yeah, you're here to embody a whole lot of teachings. And yeah, I definitely didn't say dogmatic in a negative sense, but I could see how that could be construed that way, given just maybe even your own history with the Catholic Church and stuff. Like dogma can be problematic, obviously.
I was seeking one truth for a long time. I wanted to discover it, and I went through every avenue in order to do so. My problem was I was too easily persuaded by other people and too easygoing about my own intuitive sense, and I thought that everyone who was on an awakening path was on a heart-led path, and that wasn't the case. So I ended up navigating lots of different really complicated terrain, and I just confused myself with so much knowledge. And like over the last year and a half, that's completely changed now because things intensified for me. I went into the darkest dark and was risen up out of that.
It's like Gandalf. You fell through the mines of Moria
and saw everything.
Gandalf the White now, or whatever.
Yeah, like Jim knows about this. Like you called me last summer, right when I was in the middle of like
heavy stuff. Yeah.
And not to dwell too much on the details of that, but I wasn't aware of all of the. I didn't often pay attention to truthers. I didn't like to hear about that sort of thing. So I was very like la la la, fairies and meditating and dancing in meadows, right? I just didn't want to know about any of that. So of course, my reality, I manifested a situation whereby I had to be confronted all of the darker things that are hidden from society, and the only way to get myself out was using my intuition, my guidance system, and the breath work that I was being intuitively receiving as it happened. I would be dead if that hadn't occurred. And having gone through that, it has strengthened me no end. And I can safely say now that I understand more than I did. I'm still learning every day. I don't know everything, but I'm not outsourcing my knowledge anymore.
That's what's up. We both have Gemini and Chiron, which means like we're not going to know which ideas are ours. You know, we play with a lot of ideas. Maybe we put our finger in the hole and it bites us, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, that's not fun anymore." So I feel you on that. I mean, there's even this podcast has brought on guests and things that I would never have considered these perspectives, and it's fun to play with ideas. But then you start not being sure of what's my truth versus what's just because there's an all-you-can-eat buffet doesn't mean it's even. Your digestive system might, or metaphorically speaking, might not process the same things the same ways. All right, so I'm rambling. Let's get into kind of your how you got here kind of thing. So I know you were born and raised more in Northern Ireland in Derry. There's a hilarious Netflix show. I'm forgetting what the title is, but I
Derry
saw
Girls.
Derry Girls. Yeah, it's really funny. If you all ever have Netflix, go watch that. And that's kind of pretty much literally a snapshot of her growing up years. Right? Like 1980s Northern Ireland, kind of like Protestant Catholic beef, all that jazz.
I grew up in Strabane, right, which is 20 minutes down from Derry. And Strabane is very it's literally on the border between Donegal and Tyrone, and it was known as Little Belfast during the Troubles. So Strabane had a really, really terrible time during the occupation of the British soldiers into Northern Ireland, and it was a war zone. And I was born just on the cusp of things beginning to change. It was 1985 and it was 1990 when things started to transform. But it was a traumatized society and one heavily influenced by violent politics and religion.
Dogma, the shadow of all this.
Dogma, yeah. And I landed, I remember a really interesting conversation I had with my dad when I was about 16. There was a guy who got shot in the leg. He was kneecapped for joyriding. And my dad came home and told me about it. And this was sort of, this isn't about my dad. This is more a snapshot of common society where I grew up, where there was this underlying guerrilla force running things, and it was just accepted. The police.
The guys with the ski masks. I've seen murals and stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, bless you for calling them ski masks. That's okay. Yes, you can call them that.
Or whatever they're called.
But there was those men. They had a real affinity for the truth and goodness and morality, but the problem was that it was all enforced by violence. And I remember being very young and being just asking my dad innocent enough questions. I was like, why is that young fella, and he's only a couple years older than me, been shot in the knee? It's because he was joyriding. It's but surely that's really a violent approach and a punishment for a young lad. I don't know why that's okay. He's somebody's son. What if that was me? I started asking my dad all these questions, and I started to malfunction. He's popping and he's going, because I was making him question things that had not been questioned, and it was also touching on, he was only 16 when it all kicked off for him, and he was right in the middle of it. And in the worst part of Strabane as well, where there had no power at all. So he was tossed around. A friend of his was shot in front of him. Do you know what I mean? He'd really been in it.
Yeah.
And there was me going, but Daddy, that's not fair. So he's getting mad at me. But I had this really interesting moral compass my whole life. So I feel like it sort of immobilized me for years, because I was in Catholic school then, and there was a lot of things going on there that I didn't agree with. I thought, that's not right. That's not right either. That's not right either. Right? And constantly being told, no, Seanín, you're wrong. Shut up. It is right. Right? And this is where all of my discernment and my intuition was getting cut off, because primary figures in my life that I trusted or was kind of conditioned to take as authorities were telling me that I wasn't right. But as soon as I could get away, I did. I left and went to England as soon as I could. I went to teach in England, and I remember saying to people when I left that I wanted to be out of an education system or teaching an education system that was so influenced by religion. And I denounced Catholicism altogether because I didn't like the symbolism in it. The martyred Mother Mary, the sterilized feminine, just didn't speak to me. And what I'd been put through in a Catholic school as a young girl was obviously the opposite. It was an inversion of what's the truth when it comes to Kundalini and awakening, and the divinity of our eros and our passion. All of that was, they were trying to pulverize it out of us. And I drew attention to myself because, again, big mouth, and I wasn't very socially sensible. Like I just didn't know when to stop speaking what I thought, and it
Well, you're
didn't
just
go
going to
well.
burn bright no matter what. I mean, you almost don't. You're kind. Your Mars is in Libra, so you're like, I want this to work for everybody. Let's play it nice. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you're like, I'm not going to dim my light for y'all. And with the Gemini Chiron thing, it's like people are. I mean, I get this. People are going to be like, you don't have the right ideas on things.
Mhm.
Don't be curious about that. Don't open that door. You know, don't drink that potion or whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I experienced a lot of violent response to that, though, to the extreme throughout the whole of my life. Like the responses I got weren't lukewarm. Like when I was at school, they weren't lukewarm. Growing up there was really hard for me. I really, really struggled. I went through pretty traumatic times. A really good friend of mine who lives in Melbourne now, and I haven't spoken to him in a while. I'm going to name drop him. His name's Kenny White, and he's a thoughtful individual. You'd get on really well with him. He's another one who's just like constantly going, right? And he said to me, he's like, we were traumatized by the time we were 18. Our relationships were really intense. Our parents were really intensely disconnected. We were all drinking early. We didn't know who we were. We were ashamed, you know, for our feelings, for our sexuality, our sensitivity. There was a lot we could and could not do. And it was in a, like this melting pot of like really intense, very Irish lack of boundary, you know, and for young people growing up in that way, it was crazy stuff.
Very passionate pressure cooker. I mean, it is what it is in the sense like it's all, how would I put it? Like it's never surprising the currents where they end up in the river. Like if you trace it, one of my favorite acid trips was being at a river and being like, look, it's life. There's an eddy over there and there's rapids here. And it's like you can kind of trace the whole thing and it makes sense. But that doesn't not, you know, the rapids are experiencing very violent kind of tumult, whereas, you know, the calm parts are not. And that's you know, as above, so below. It's like the society, people internally, externally. So I mean, I don't know if obviously Sunday Bloody Sunday and like U2 and all this shit, if is basically the vibe. I mean, it was almost like a Palestine-Israel situation between Protestants and Catholics. If people aren't aware, I'm not that aware of Northern Irish history.
It was a straight up genocide. Like it was a straight up attempted murder. Like, and it wasn't much different.
Right.
Like, and it went on for years and years and years and years and years. And I'm apolitical, right?
I hear that. Yeah.
I am fiercely apolitical, but do I feel robbed of the indigenous knowledge of Ireland and the spiritual coherence with the land? Yes. Do I feel like I was divorced from my identity as an Irish person because it became politicized? Yes. And all of those things frustrate me even now. And I'm trying to entrench myself and reconnect with that on a different level now. Like I've been hearing from Danu, like during all of this, like it's been really interesting. But we'll get to that. But
yeah, what's up, Rafa?
What's that?
No, I'm just wondering. So since it's your lived experience, and now you're in the UK, if I understand correctly. I mean UK. I always with these terms. But what I'm curious about, what would you say is the feeling or sentiment right now between Irish culture and English culture, or individuals that identify themselves as Irish or English? Is there still like animosity in some sections of the population, or how is this being dealt with, or not at all?
I am so far removed from the politics now that it wouldn't be right for me to comment on that. What I can
not politics, mostly just socially or whatever you recognize.
For me, I don't feel like I belong in England personally. I have never felt like I belonged here. They're lovely people here. I live in Brighton. It's a really liberal, gorgeous place. Like
an art city.
It is an artsy city. I'm just outside of it in a little village, but the people here are lovely and there is a lot to do. But it's sort of anti-culture. So when you come here as an expat, which is essentially what I am, right? You lose sense of yourself quite quickly. Like I miss Ireland intensely and I would love to be back there, and it's part of the dream that eventually I will be able to go home there with my son on some level. Like for him personally, I want him to have a deeper sense of who he is and where he comes from, and that experience of becoming a mother really made that stand out for me. Like I recognize now how deeply ingrained my own disconnect from a feminine sense of self, a feminine spiritual self, harmed me. And I don't want that for him. Like I have Kuan Yin on my wall up here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I've like, he goes to a little Roman Catholic school for now because I like him to learn about, you know, God and prayer and all the rest of that. That's so important to me, and I still resonate with that very much. Like, I understand you do as well, Jim, right?
Protestant stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's I believe in consciousness and multidimensionality, but I also know there's a creator God. That's my experience.
Mm.
But I want him to be present to. He calls her girl God.
What's that mean?
So girl God, like female God.
Okay, I got you.
Like, so I show him different faces of female God, and I
Like
teach
the Holy
him.
Spirit, kind of. It's like,
Yeah,
that's what she looks like, maybe.
yeah, and I teach him, and she's got lots of faces, so I show him lots of different faces, and then I teach him how to pray without blessing himself. I say, like, just God just lives there. You can just speak from here, and I teach him how to meditate, and like he makes up random songs about his heart, and he says that his heart is golden and silver, and I recorded him singing this once in a wee video, and I've got a painting above my bed, just above where I sleep, of like a golden heart that burst, and when I finished that painting, he went, "Mommy, that's my heart that you painted."
Aw. He's a little poet.
He's gorgeous. Yeah, he really is. Like, he speaks with like a staunch English, Southern English accent. He's like, "Hello, mummy," right?
Oh,
But
snap.
he is so Irish, like, and everything, the way that he moves, the way he speaks, the way he thinks. So it's quite funny.
And just in case people aren't aware, Kuan Yin is like the Bodhisattva kind of mode of Chinese and Eastern Asia kind of stuff. So cool. Usually good, like multi-armed goddess situation, and it's kind of this Bodhisattvas are like this compassion thing. It's like, hey, I'm not going to escape the Matrix. I'm going to come back and give you the Holy Grail or whatever it is. So I can ramble. So you were obviously raised on the iconography of Christianity. It's funny because you were talking about how like it like subverted some things. It's one of those things. And I don't need to go down too many rabbit holes where it's like clearly after Constantine and stuff, I'm pretty sure you're aware of like the esoteric kind of occult levels of things where it's like, oh, there's paganism as like the undergirder, and then they kind of put a cloth on top, and it's like, all right, look, there's fertility cults. That's going to be the Mary shtick. So that's why that's so resonant in a lot of the cultures. And then even I've seen art where it shows like a labia and a clitoris and stuff, and it's like, it's Mary. Like that's, I don't know how intentional that is, but it's definitely resonating and it's there. And stuff like you know, Christmas being the 25th, and that's like, you know, near the pagan holidays and mistletoe and all this stuff. Anyway, the point I guess I'm getting at is there's a lot of ins and outs, so it's not like, you know, a pure thing that popped out. Even the whole story with the snakes and St. Patrick and all that stuff. It's an interesting, you know, point in history and ecology of thought. But it seems like you've taken, I mean, it's weird because it's one of those things where it's like we're shaped by the information, and then we shape the information as kind of this orb-world feedback loop. So it sounds like you've taken the best of what you can resonate with. It's not like you're beating your kid over the head with it. And so when you left Ireland, you were saying that you were kind of just like, screw it, I'm over this. Stranger in a strange land mode. I'm going to England. What were you teaching?
English literature.
Okay, was there? I just watched Dead Poet Society with my girlfriend last night. She'd never seen it, and it's
That's
like,
one of my favorites.
oh yeah, it's free on archive.org if people want to watch it. It's on there for free, so you can watch it anytime. Robin Williams is great. So, what kind of literature were you focused on? I mean, obviously, you're very good with literature. At some point, I hope you do read one of those poems. You're gonna have to choose, Seanín, Two of Wands.
I will choose. I'll choose most recent if I do one. So yeah.
All right. What kind of I mean, we don't have to geek out hard here forever, but I like English and literature and read a lot and stuff. So what were you pushing, like, or what were you hovering around intellectually with that?
It was because it was the English curriculum here, so it was like language and literature. And in my last years it was up to A level, and there was a lot of poetry. And that's where my heart really is. Like, it's the poetry. I think consciousness speaks in metaphor.
1,000.
What I've experienced, like, and that language has been natural to me my whole life. Like, I've never been good at academia or kind of learned heavy texts or remembering historical dates or getting things right all the time. I was never that person. I was pretty ditzy and kind of in my own world a lot of the time. But when it came to poetry, you could put a poem in front of me and I could tear it apart in 19 seconds. Like, that was just in me. And it's the same language that's in the tarot, which is why when that all kicked off, it went so well. because I was reading the tarot for years and years and years and years and years and years.
Okay,
And
so what is your theory on it, and like why did you give it up? Kind of because whenever I talk to people with tarot, I'm like, yo, you don't have to think this is like a 12D Palladian channeling. Like you don't have to get too woo about it. I always looked at it at the very least as a Jungian projection tool, where it's like we're taking a comic book, we're chopping it up, we're geeking out on the characters. Your subconscious is going to play with this. It's got like really deep archetypes for our cultures and stuff like that. So how did you get into tarot and magic and stuff like that? Given you're a Catholic girl, I mean, when did you start creeping into that domain?
Well, I wasn't Catholic. Like as soon as
you're Protestant?
I stopped being a Catholic. I was like, as soon as I was like 17, 18, I was like, I don't agree with any of this. No, thank you, bye.
Right.
Like, and I just was really clear about that. And I was kind of moving in the world individually. I was not connected from my family. It was a really traumatic background that I came from. And I raised myself. I did that on my own. And the tarot was kind of a reflection of my first communion with consciousness. And it was a dramatic transformation because the second I started to use it, I started to get stuff here. Like it was immediate. And I was really curious, but also very cynical. So I did more and more and more. And I wanted to learn about it and watch it and learn how it was coming in for me. And I was experiencing consciousness as a disc. And I was learning as well about how when people came to me, they'd get a message and then it would change according to how much feeling they were doing in between a reading. And this was it was kind of this journey of teaching me about the invisible realm and how to trust what was coming in and how to not trust what was coming in. I learned about two different streams. And eventually I had to stop. It was around COVID time. I couldn't have predicted what happened there. And I was reading for people and I went, I'm not ever reading again.
So you got traumatized out of it?
Not traumatized. It was out of integrity.
Okay, even how?
I was like,
how Sagittarian. I don't know why my crusade is happening, so I'm gonna stop.
If I couldn't see this nonsense, then I don't have anything to contribute. And plus, I kept getting told it was disrupting something bigger. And this is just my own perspective on it. Like, if we are going for a reading, there's always a moment in time where that's incredibly useful. But as our consciousness evolves, our intuition and our own receiving state becomes very much important to our own evolution.
Yes.
And applying our attention to that and that conversation with consciousness that appears in our everyday is way more viable and can shift us quicker and faster than
I hear you.
a set feed from somewhere else. It's also very, very difficult to feed an information to others from a completely neutral place. It's really, really hard because the emotional human heart will always have its own intention, and that tends to color what you're receiving. I used to try and outdo this by giving people readings simply about what I was receiving and trying not to interpret it. I used to be like, and I'd say to people, like, this is everything I'm getting in a mishmash, and I'd have these giant recordings of just everything that was being visualized, and I stopped using the cards altogether. It was just whatever was being seen. And people will come back to me like 2 or 3 years later, because at the time it didn't mean anything, but 2 or 3 years later you mapped out the events. And they were just a little pointers, and I understood it then. It's been a bit of a timeline shift where I was sort of picking up information where they could then make choices based on things, rather than it being, this is your fate, the end, which I don't believe in whatsoever.
We're on the same wave there. Yeah, it's like I think of it as like a pulse of the Tao at a level. So it's almost like archetypally driven, obviously. And I don't know, it's kind of like if you're a kid, you're going to watch cartoons and it's like Disney and stuff, and it's going to do something to you. But at some point you got to, it doesn't mean stop doing tarot, because I'll always probably mess with it. But I totally understand what you mean in terms, especially listening to more Bashar and stuff lately, channelings and stuff, where it's just like, look, you're going to have to figure out your own stuff. I mean, yes, it's okay to use culture and symbols and this stuff, but there's limitations within that necessarily. And they're not like forever truths. It's like you were just saying, it's like, this is applicable now. And that can kind of not devalue, but it creates I mean, you're aware of it. It's like a quantum infinite Indra's net. And if we're talking about one sphere on the net, it's like, okay, this might not be applicable to all things. And and what's really funny is, like, if you put ideas in people's minds, there's a real responsibility on the part of the reader and stuff, where it's like you can start making people not go crazy, but start seeing synchronicities or opening up in a certain way. That, I mean, I don't know about your presuppositions. I don't even know if, can we make mistakes? Is it all good? I don't even know. But in some way it seems like you can, how would I put it? I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I hear what you were saying though. Basically, it's like it's
I
good for
don't
a
believe
time in a
how-
way.
If I'm
Mhm.
hearing you correctly, Jim, here, this is what I'm hearing. You're like, there's a way, there's a lot of responsibility when you're playing like that. And I think it's coming from a power over dynamic, which I don't operate within anymore. Like, I have been through the worst, darkest experience and experienced things and learned stuff from a very dark place over the last year and a half. And I have witnessed things about this reality that I wish I hadn't seen. But what I have seen on the underneath of it is our equality. I've seen that we are all exactly the same, and underneath we are all gods. We are all part of consciousness, and we are all pure beings. And that there is nothing apart from our own desire for power, however slight, that blocks us from hearing that and seeing that in everybody. Also, I just want to say the people who are watching are bloody hilarious. I have to stop looking at that feed because they're all just making really funny jokes.
I know. Sometimes it's people shouting
They're
about Muhammad and
hilarious.
stuff.
One of them is all they're after me Lucky Charms. Another one's posted there's loads of Irish jokes coming up here. I am all for slagging. Like, rip me, please. I enjoy that.
You're a masochist, I guess. Oh,
Just
nice
let
little
me go.
Gemini symbol there too.
But
So
no, that's
yeah,
what
I think okay. So I understand you kind of walked away. Not only was there a level of culpability in your own mind where you're like, if I don't know the jungle, why would I be a tour guide if I didn't see the waterfall coming and we went over a waterfall kind of thing with the COVID thing? To your, I mean, look straight up. I mean, I'm into tarot and astrology and groups and New Agers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Not even well, I guess you could say Bill Gates and crew fucking knew this kind of could occur with simulations of this stuff. But by and large, the astrology at the time was Saturn and Pluto conjunct. People knew it was going to be big and important, like death and transformation in the world and structures and all this kind of stuff. No one, I don't think, could have guessed, and maybe The Simpsons or something, but no one could have guessed the detail of how that manifests. So don't beat yourself up too much. I do think you have magic, so never like hide it under a bushel. But you're going to have to rock that, Excalibur, however you're going to wield that. So yeah, and I'll just say this and we can move on. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like like in Bashar's thinking, he's like, it's a permission slip, and maybe your permission slips have changed. I know that can happen, right? Obviously, at some point we can say, like, at some point, some people like Alan Watts, he's a Capricorn. He's like, psychedelics are awesome, and then when you get the message, hang up the phone, kind of thing. And I'm a psychonaut personally, so I'm all about tripping every now and then. But the idea is, things change. It's not always summer. Sometimes it's winter. Things change. So you got to kind of have a discerning awareness of the moment that you're in and try to meet it appropriately as you see fit. And there's lessons both dark and light in all moments, as you were saying. So it's fascinating that you've seen Under the Hood recently and seen quote darkness, because it's in a very woke way. It's like, oh, it's all one thing, but at the same time it's like polarity is one hell of a drug, and it's down here that we're getting to dance with all the fractalization of that polarity. All right, Raphael, you're back. I don't think you ever went anywhere, but did you have any questions?
No, I never went anywhere.
He is very chill.
Oh, I didn't think he went anywhere. He's the caterpillar. I feel like Alice just going down,
No,
down,
just
down.
because you mentioned about predicting it. So, of course, there were all kinds of power groups. And if in hindsight, of course, it's easier to see which patent was filed when and all of these things. One thing that may be interesting to some of you is there's an individual by the name of Cliff High. Almost sounds like a joke. At least that's the moniker he uses online for many years. And what he did, or what he started with, even in the late 90s or early 2000s, he started crawling the internet, which back then was, let's just say, very different to access, with like bots basically, and searching for words, searching for ultimately meaning, which he derived by attributing certain words with certain emotional values and then creating predictive models out of that. And the curious thing is that initially what he tried to do, because he was formerly like a Microsoft engineer or something, like high-level IT stuff, and he said, well, I just like to predict the stock market price. And I'm not sure if he specifically chose that one. It may have even been that he chose Sun Microsystems, which is quite a big company, right? And I remember even, I don't want to lie now, but maybe at least would be like probably 8 years ago or 9-10 years, he more and more did online presentations on this, and then always presenting, look, this is the new data we got, this is what it looks like. And quite a few years prior to the whole lockdown period, he actually said there is something really strange. It's related to this sun, or dare I say corona theme. And I distinctively remember that he said, yes, and the data I'm getting is something along the lines of some people will just drop down on the floor, and I don't know what it means. Maybe it means they have to be pulled out of the sun or something like this. But what I just want to say, it very much looks like, even through the data mining process in a somewhat advanced fashion, he was able to predict what would eventually happen. So his working hypothesis was that individuals are connected to some kind of consciousness field, and even if they're not themselves aware of it, they will like slip certain words or ideas. I also don't exactly know where he mined all the data from. I just wanted to say that for certain people, obviously it was possible. What I'd also like to relate, but maybe for different reasons, I also did channeling for quite a few years. I never tried to predict anything, and always tried, if people only were willing to understand it, to, if anything, relate to them that it is actually them who are accessing anything anyways. And even if they were to glean any information through whatever I'm saying or doing in that state, I even said, see it as a role play if you want. It doesn't matter. You don't have to imagine something grand. It's just like a mirror of consciousness, like tarot. But ultimately, even here, you are the one interpreting it, if I would be doing a channeling for you or reading for you. So it's all coming through you anyways. That was always my approach. But also here, similarly, maybe to your, or in parallel in certain ways, I mainly stopped doing that for the last years. And I also, for some reason, almost completely stopped using cards as well. I'm not exactly sure why. Either it's like some sort of an integration, or it's some sort of a limbo or something, but it is interesting what to say.
That is interesting. I can relate a lot to what you say there, Raphael. Thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting. And yeah, that sounds a lot like where I was.
Well, it sounds like what we're kind of talking about is there's this like Akash level of things where maybe mystics, psychedelic trips, whatever, tapping into synchronicity and all this stuff can reference this Rosa tabla or whatever of data that is transcendent or something, almost like a platonic form. And then we bring it into our hyperdimensional hologram or whatever's going on down here. So yeah, fascinating stuff. But all right, so how long did you teach? You know, we can, I'm trying to fast forward to now 13 years.
13 years, yeah.
It's a hot fucking minute. I didn't realize you were that long.
I stopped in between after COVID 2018. I stopped for a couple of years there, and was working just with the cards and the tarot, and then that all fell apart. And then the last 5 years since my son arrived, I'm pretty sure that's when the true depths of the awakening began. It was 2013. I saw the Wheel of Karma, I think it's called, at the end of my bed. Woke up doing Kundalini Kriyas. And it was like, that was the start where I had this big experience of like, I saw like source. I was like floating into the sun at like 4 a.m. in my bedroom, and then nothing for years. And then my son arrived, and then loads of searching and seeking and doing lots of channeling and reading and stuff. I'm pretty sure I was open here, but the rest of me wasn't. Right. That's my experience. And then obviously last year happened, and I got the 57 breaths for True Nature Breathwork, and I quit the teaching. I'm pretty fucking sharpish.
So you found the gold, and you sit on. I mean, even in the Bible, it's like, hey, if a guy finds something in the field that's super valuable, he buys the field, and he just kind of like, he's like, all right, I found what I needed here. So, tell us a little about how you got into breath work. I mean, was it totally like a download, or I think you'd been kind of dabbling with Eastern thought with Seafood Bogey and stuff. He's been on here once or twice.
Jim, I went through something really dangerous. I was at the lowest point in my life. I had nothing. I was extremely broken and very sad, and I got mixed up in a very dangerous circumstance, and I got a big beam on my head that said, this is what's happening. And on a criminal, occult, physical, emotional, personal level, my heart broke into smithereens, and so did my brain. And as a result of that experience, I spent months then rebuilding myself with only myself, consciousness, and my Spotify playlist. And I was started to get given breaths, and there was a certain method I needed to use to offset all of the things that were happening to me, and I called that one sea breath. And then these breaths were coming in, and I was told, go on TikTok, share the breath, go on TikTok, share the breath. And this is in my broken state. And I had no idea what was going on or where they were going to go. But this went on across the last year, and I know I finished them just around January time, and it was 57 in total, and each one pulls up a certain emotional memory, and it turns out it follows the channel of the Sushumna and integrates all of our Kundalini in full, and it primes and grounds safely. And I have been mentoring people around the world, and it will complete awakening.
Well, damn.
Yeah, so it's been huge, and I am not dead because I got shown every time I did the breath, it collapsed something externally in my reality, and I'm giving it out for free. It's just all there. So if anyone wants to download it and just do it, it's there.
I
And it
have
only
the
needs to be
PDF.
completed.
I just told my girlfriend about it yesterday, and I was like, "We should do this. Maybe it's like time kind of thing." Because you told me about it about a year ago, I think, maybe
Yeah.
around then, and I was kind of like, "Oh, that's cool," but you know how Geminis are. We just, all right, I'm gonna go to the next arcade game, so I'll have to mess with it more intentionally because it sounds like something that really not only helped you but can help others. I mean, it's a bold statement to say this will complete the awakening process.
It does. It's worked for everyone, Jim. I wouldn't say that if I'd seen it work for everybody else. It's working for people all around the world, Northern Europe, in the UK, in Ireland, in America. I've been mentoring people through the exact same thing, and it is all there to do. It's a self-healing program. And some people come to me for mentoring if they want to, but I don't care about that. I got told, put it out. Dude, I saw hell. I saw the hell that exists on this planet, and I got put through the fucking mill, forgive me for swearing, right?
Okay.
And they picked the most down-to-earth, ordinary, no bullshit person, right, to put through that, to put this out, because I would not stand on it going, look at me, the big I am, because I don't give a freaking fick about any freaking thing like that, right? And that's why it was me, because I'm ordinary.
I agree with that, actually. Usually,
yeah.
like, the most profound things have to come through, like, humble, like King Arthur, if you've seen the Sword in the Stone.
I
It's
don't
like,
give a shit. Like, it's not about me. It's like, I'm literally sitting on the Holy Grail here. And when I go to explain it to people, I try really hard not to get mad excited. But I have seen people who have been suffering for years now and have been through even worse conditions than myself. Just because they're already there, their Kundalini comes up within 3 days. And that's the first integration. I've had 7 or 8 integrations in the last year and a half. Plus now I'm accessing more multidimensional stuff. I'm more grounded. I'm more myself. I have no fear anymore. I'm a happy lady, right? I have been through the wars and I shouldn't be here. And I'm so content because I know now that we're all safe. Like, I've just been shown, like,
you're walking
I
on
can't
water.
even begin to explain to you how crazy. Like, you called me in the middle of this. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know what you must have been thinking at the time. But it is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And I am so glad to be able to say to people, this actually works and you don't have to pay a damn thing. And because I'm pedantic as hell, and I used to be a teacher, I have done it so carefully. It's like this, if you look it up, it's like autistic as heck. I've just got bullet point after bullet point and step after step. And it's just anyone can do it.
I think that's a good sign of a good philosophy where it's like it's accessible to anybody and it's not like paywalled. I mean, if you want to make money and stuff, I'm not even against that. Like, we live in a capitalistic society. Late stage capitalism sucks, whatever. But so I'm not gonna just be like, I'm not being a naysayer. I'm just looking at all sides, kind of. And but I could tell you. I mean, Sagittarius to me is like the cheerleader. It's like you have found your team and you are wearing the gear and you're like, I don't, you don't, in a sense, you don't care. Well, what came to mind is, even though I don't care if it's historically accurate necessarily fully or whatever, but the stories, archetypes, let's just put it that way, with Moses, where it's like he's a stutterer and he doesn't have a strong voice, and he's, he murdered a dude according to the stories or whatever, and he's like, I'm on the lam, I gotta hide out, and I'm not trying to get back, I'm not going back to the city, and the idea is like, look, God is going to use you in spite of your infirmities. The people who are like, I know what I'm talking about, check me out, like that's the ones you got to be aware of, like wary of, because usually not all that glitters is gold, whereas I think whatever, the meek inherit the earth or something like that, right, where it's just like it's going to be the hands and feet of spirit in a way that I mean, that's the whole point of the Christ story, right? It's like, oh, it's a baby in a manger, you guys were expecting some, like, I don't know, king on a horse or whatever. I know they're all stories, not everybody even thinks they're accurate or helpful, but there's something energetically there that's where we're at least have been recently for various reasons. Anyway, Raphael, I want to get your input on this because we were talking about Kundalini yesterday, ironically, with our guest, and there's a lot to it. I had little visions back in the day, like I called it like Kundalini hiccups. I still get them sometimes, where it's like it's something to be aware of. Like it's going to change your life. It's a little like a natural red pill, where it's like once you start messing with this, it's going to necessarily alchemize your reality in a biological way, which will necessarily therefore have results in the exterior. So it's not just going to be like, you know, Netflix, you can hit pause and stop or whatever. So
it's not coming in a rough way this way. It's all integrated and slow, and you just have to feel feelings at depth, and you can do it. And it means not having to wait to manifest awful things externally anymore. Like you feel it all through from within, because that's what I got shown. I got shown because of my trauma and autism and heartbreak and orphan-esque kind of a life. I wasn't really feeling my feelings for years. So I manifested in this situation that would force that. And it has elements to it, nuances to it that would break my heart in a more deep, more romantic, more powerful, more awful way. It had
like poetry.
It had its poetic perfection, right?
Yeah.
And I needed to be destroyed like this, right? And to see that karma is just emotional energy we haven't felt through at depth. And it's all very, very simple. And yes, Kundalini itself, the experiences that have been dictated to us prior, normally come from Eastern philosophy, which creates this hierarchy like this, where it's like you reach nirvana and samadhi and all the rest of it, and you're like an enlightened being and you're higher than others. What I got shown is that this is just human evolution. We're all equal in this, and it's very natural and biological, and a lot of the stuff that we've been taught is kind of a load of bunkum or coming from places where people have been traumatized into a Kundalini awakening, and it doesn't require that. And I'm very anti image. I don't even hold a spiritual image per se. I don't even like to say that word too much.
You mean like iconography or whatever?
Yeah, I don't like that. I just want to be myself. And the more that I worked with this, the more myself I became. And I was shown that we're all unique facets of an intervention currently. And this is part of a bunch of different things that are happening globally to support an intervention to help restore the earth. And it's not a new age thing. It's not a multidimensional thing. It's not an Eastern thing. It's not a weird Western cult thing. It's not anything. It's just human beings returning to their natural order. And that's it.
Well, okay, so I can start referencing all these new age things and like Hopi prophecies and star seeds and all this stuff. Raphael, I'm kind of curious what your take on this is, because especially given the fact that you kind of backed off of channeling yourself in tarot somewhat, not maybe fully, but I mean, you still let me pull cards. I appreciate that. So yeah, how do you see this? It's a very pragmatic approach in the sense of like, this is part of human evolution. We were talking about that yesterday on the podcast, right? Like this is just kind of when the water breaks, the baby comes out and here he is.
Well, isn't all condensation of theory's only purpose to ultimately be pragmatic and within the real world?
I would hope. Yeah. Otherwise it's a circle jerk.
No matter how it happens exactly, or then what words you use. But yeah, obviously we don't have to go through all of them. There's lots of issues with all kinds of systems and religions, and even where you wouldn't suspect it. I've heard even of whatever Buddhist prana teachers, probably some sects or whatever, and also they're like, oh, but we're not going to tell you who we worship, and then you need to attend 15 other classes. It's like Scientology or whatever, which obviously is not the way to go if you want to actually assist individuals in becoming sovereign, and also in a sense that allows them to see that they are equal, even though we're all different, but that they're actually equal capacity in many different ways, or value and all of these things.
Well, I don't know if it's because it's like a Kali Yuga. Like I don't have a nailed in idea, but it seems like we've come into a time, maybe the past few thousand years or whatever. I mean, if Atlantis was a thing, cool. Like I'm not against any idea necessarily. I'd like to make it make sense at some level, but it seems like we've come into out of an era of division, dominance, hierarchies. I mean, they're necessary for where we got. We wouldn't even have the internet right now potentially, and all this kind of stuff if we hadn't gone through these, eddies of becoming or whatever. I'm not saying it couldn't have happened, but obviously the case is the matter, I guess is the best way to put it. Like this is what's occurred. And but it seems like we're all waking up to a level of choice, like a level of sovereignty. I'm not sure if do you think these teachings are good for like Finn? And like,
I don't really call it teachings, because like you have an experience through the breath that is biological and personal to you, and most people have that experience. Like there's no teaching with it. It's just this is how you do the breath to feel deeply, and how to love yourself back to feeling better. And this is all a biological approach. Like the biology takes over, and then consciousness comes in and leads you through it all, and it's your consciousness. Like I don't have to touch that. Like
Can't
it's
touch
got
that.
nothing to do with me. Like I want to put me in context too for Raphael's point there, because you mentioned Scientology, and I don't want to be aligned with that at all. So I'm just going to clarify who I am here. I'm a single mom in a flat in Brighton. I ain't got shit, man. I have nothing behind me. I have no agenda. I am not asking anything of anyone. I'm not part of any cult. Frankly, I was naive as heck when all that what happened to me happened. And the only thing I care about right now is telling the truth. Like I haven't got any investment in what people do with regards to this, but I'm not going to speak about my truth and my experience from a place that is small or frightened. I can't, after everything I've seen. You understand the importance of that, right? Like this is not, I'm not a franchise, I'm a human being and a mother at that.
The thought that came to mind was I'm not big into Catholic history or anything. What's the chick's name who was talking to God? Joan of Arc. It's like at some point she saw some light and it was like, yo, I'm gonna do my thing and I don't care who's on my team or not, and this is what we gotta do. So I feel in a weird way, it's a kind of a paradox, because on the one hand, we're all waking up to our sovereign truths, and how that will manifest will probably look different for everybody.
Yes.
So I've heard the analogy where it's like, the cherry blossom tree is blooming, and every, bloom is going to do it differently. Some don't bloom at all. Some bloom early, whatever. It's like the tree is going to awaken, if you want to put it that way, to the degree that it does. And it's all good. I guess my question earlier was like, it's not so much, I mean, at worst, there's a polarity of gatekeeping that can be very, problematic in the sense of like extortion or power dominance, like, oh, you guys, whatever, kind of like what he was talking about. I'm not suggesting you're doing this, Seanín, just for the record. I don't think he was either.
I don't know how I could, man. Like, I don't know how I could.
No,
it's
okay.
Sitting there like for free.
Right. So
I'm broke, man. I haven't got a business.
Hold on. We're not attacking you, so don't.
I know, but I just want to make that really clear, because it can
she's
be
doing
so
it from the heart.
Easily misconstrued. Like we show up in any show, the majority has an agenda ruling of marketing or an identity or a product or a plan or an agenda or something, and I just don't, man. This is what happened to me in the end.
Yeah, you're surfing. I hear you.
Yeah, that's literally it.
You're just playing. So I guess let me just finish this thought, and then you can take it where you want. So usually what happens, let's just say someone sees the burning bush and they're like, oh my gosh, and they try to codify a system, and even though you're like, these aren't teachings, this is just how I did it or whatever. Sometimes there's like initiatory levels, in the sense that it's like, this might not be appropriate for every age group. That's kind of what I was asking, like, is this something anybody, any age, any gender, whatever can do? Or do you think people have to be at a certain point of like awareness and maturity?
I feel like it has to be adults. I feel like it has to be adults, because it goes right into like original emotional experiences. And it starts with the few premises. There are a few things that are obvious, like the core principles being that we come in here perfect, right? And then we get disrupted. The emotional energy in our body start to block the flow of our natural sexual soulful energy, and slows up our evolution. And it is just evolution, because we're all that, it's not a special thing. And equally, the children are perfect when they come here. But it starts with looking at and calling us into the deeper parts of our memory, and asks us to feel into the memory. And there's like a physical experience that I describe when you go into it, where it feels like your body sort of squeezing, and you can feel the pressure. I'm at the point now where when someone tells me what's happening in the reality, I can kind of guess where the Kundalini's sitting and where to point them to if they're in an urgent space. Like with Raphael and his cynicism, that'll be Fibonacci spiral breath there.
I think he's just a Libra.
That's a good place to start, man. Right? I'm only teasing. You have to get used to me. This is how I do things. And it's really, really powerful, because once you can identify where it's sitting, you can kind of get the whole thing moving a lot quicker. And people have physical benefits pretty much instantly. But it is asking you to look at very adult experience, like adult memory. Like the first one's called Healing Original Separation, and it's the first experience of horror and disgust for a child with a parent, which is a very confusing experience for a child, because we come into this world like all full of love, and the parents are the first source of love. So the experience that you have with them that is not love for the first time sort of changes how you view reality and how you view yourself. And it begins the undoing of that.
Right, the fracturing, the splintering. I mean, in Christian Jewish theological terms, sin means missing the mark. It's like we come in on mark, and then it's not even that it's out of place. It's like we ask. I mean, depending on one's presuppositions, like we asked to come into a movie where we're actually there's a really good Terrence Malick film about Gnosticism, which is called the Knight of Cups, with Christian Bale. And it's based off of this Gnostic idea where it's like, this guy's a prince in a kingdom, whatever. He comes into the play and he forgets he's a prince. It's kind of like that, where it's like, we are so much more than we remember. We've put on this kind of, even Yoda's like, divine luminous beings are we, like, or whatever. It's like, this isn't exactly what we think it is. And we've gotten deep up in this VR called life. And there's more to the picture than meets the eye. And how we can kind of remember that and get back to the source code, so to speak, is an important process. I'm not, in a bell curve sense, I'm not even sure everybody even agrees to do that. Some people might just remain ignorant forever, and that's okay. That's their trip. So you would suggest, I mean, even in Kabbalah and stuff, they're like, don't do this unless you're 40. Like, I
wouldn't like, I'd say some teenagers definitely would benefit from it. Like the teenager I used to teach in a really rough school in south of England, and these children have been through hell really early on, and the stuff that came up for me, I was like, yeah, they could do with this. It depends on the experience that they've had. Like, and it's sad to say, but given the reality that we're living in right now, there's so few that haven't been through a lot. But what I do know for definite, right, is that, and that's what have been shown, is that there isn't anything in any of the breasts. It doesn't exist in every single one of us. And what it does is it sort of levels you out. Once you've been through all those emotions in your own body, you start to experience emotions differently. You're kind of entrained then to see them as separate from your actual self, because you're going in and breathing them out all day long. I'm at this point now where I'll have these bursts come up and then they leave, and then a burst come up and it leaves, and it's centralized who I am. Like, I'm in the midst of all that now, and it doesn't really affect me as much as it used to. And there's an energy of a lot more, I don't know, confidence than who I was before. Like, I just, nothing really phases me now. Like, I can go through things and feel stuff really deeply, but it's not going to take me down into a hole, because I'm going into holes naturally and witnessing emotion as energy rather than part of my nature now.
Yeah, you're going into the cave and facing the dragons for the gold, so to speak.
Yeah.
So whereas normally people get attacked by a dragon, they're like, I didn't even ask for this. What's going on? Yeah. And it sounds like a little more in a Buddhist sense, like you're tapping into the witness self. So it's like, clouds come, clouds go, thoughts and emotions come. Neti, not this. It's not this. It's like there's an abiding awareness that we are part of. And then I get, I don't know how it works, but
it's my emotional energy that's coming up to be released, but I'm not acting from it anymore. And it doesn't color how I see things anymore either. It just gives me a lot more clarity. And the more you do that, and this is across months and months now, right? The less controlled you are by those releases. It's how I interpret it now. It's like, I'm releasing something that will leave permanently. And the breaths only need to be completed once. It's not something that you have to go back to,
All right. So is there any other, you're saying like more mature people have been through the shit or whatever. Yeah. More or less more traumatized is better. I mean, that's a weird way to put it. Adults, yeah. Like maturity. Is there any kind of requirement in terms of like, do it with your eyes closed? Like, I'm sure you have some directions, maybe. Like, do you have to be healthy physically or, all that jazz?
You started halfway through, I started getting directed in terms of diet and well-being and health, because my multidimensional faculties were stronger and I was getting clearer guidance then. And I'm in that place now where I know where I'm at, right? So you get all this anyway. No part of your reality is excluded, because you're actually making a transition from one reality into another. You're not just doing breath work. It's a literal transformation of the whole of the way that you interpret reality, and you're getting guided. This is the best bit. So lovingly and so personally to yourself. Like, for someone who lived a life where I was not loved and not cared about And my life was designed that way, where I would end up just with no one around me and having no one to support. And I didn't get protected when I needed. To feel and experience consciousness is this very benign being that's just talking to me and knows me really bloody well, right? And that's kind of the way the transition feels, is amazing. And nothing can take that away from me. Once you've kind of got that, it's there forever now. Like, and that's the reality that I'm living in. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm not concerned about what anyone else believes. It's not about belief for me. It's just something has happened now where I'm living in a very different way as a result of it. And no part of my reality has been left out.
That's what's up.
Everything gets wrung out.
Yeah, it reminds me a little of, I mean, Joseph Campbell has the hero's journey, but it's very well represented, obviously, in Star Wars or something, where it's like, you know, the Fool card kind of thing. Luke Skywalker's chilling on Tatooine. He's just this kid wanting to go to the arcade or whatever. Gets initiated into a grander story, starts finding out about himself, loses his mentor. I don't want to give too much away if people haven't seen Star Wars, but basically, there's a
You're giving a lot away here.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of ins and outs, and even to the point where it's like, you know, whatever. If you see Star Wars, you get it, and it's not like the best thing ever. I'm not obsessed with it, but it's a really good lens to which we can, as modern or postmodern, kind of, dare I say, you know, intellectuals or something, like we can grok so much through that lens that what I'm getting at is, like, once Luke becomes aware of the Force, he has to learn how to wield it, and he has to like get over self-doubts, and maybe even like in the newer movies where it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't raise up this kid in the way he should go, and it all backfired, and I was jealous and afraid and all this stuff. Like, we're gonna have to, once you become awake of stuff, like, it doesn't go away, and then it's just our dancing with that awareness that is, it always was the case, but it's like getting closer and closer to a synergetic dance or something like that. And it sounds like you're kind of doing the whirling dervish on your own little axial tilt there, which is good, great stuff. I'll have to be trying out this stuff. My girlfriend earlier commented, she's like, yo, let's do it. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I wanted to do it anyway.
It's amazing. It's a trip. Like, it can be painful. Like, the sea breath, the original base breath, people usually do for a couple of weeks just to get used to the feeling of the squeezing and to get the body ready before you start doing the bigger breaths that are longer. But there's benefit every day and transformation every day, and your heart just opens. And there are phases where you're like bawling, crying, and there's all this gunk that comes up, but it's like an emotional detox.
Right. I mean, it's like deconstructing a house. You're like, oh, there's mold here, and maybe that foundation's a little cracked. We got to fix that and all this stuff. You just become more aware. Buddha means awake. And the idea is like we're waking up to something, right? And if people aren't picking up what she's putting down, that's where you're at. It's all good. But I hear what you're saying, and I'm curious, Raphael. I mean, I'm at a place where I'm willing to mess with certain spiritual practices more than others. Psychedelics are cool. I'm not outgrowing astrology and tarot, but I think it's my role to kind of help others with that. But I'm starting to see maybe that it's like sock puppets, and it's like there's something bigger that is kind of ineffable. I mean, maybe the word to say.
There always is, isn't there?
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious as to what you hear her saying, and maybe how, if you have your own style of doing things, where you're at with your own spiritual journey in terms of praxis, because it's one, I know, put you on the spot.
I'm nowhere. But what I can say, it's very simple. Use whatever works, and if it works for you, then that's the thing you're doing. There's always something more to learn. There's usually always some kind of a new level or next level, and understandably, we're always most excited about the most recent best thing that we understand it to be. And that will most likely transform at some point, or maybe it will stay for a long time. But yeah, I don't have any, let's say, particular sentiments about it. Breathwork overall, from everything I know, is very amazing. There's very many different approaches to it. But as I said, if you have had your own experience with it and it works for others, then it's certainly worth checking out. And breathing technically should be easy enough to do for everyone, although too many people have very much too little idea about how to breathe generally. So I would recommend everyone to take a good look. And also, I actually sent this to you on Facebook already. I'm not sure if you're aware of this individual by the name of Konstantin Buteyko. So a friend recently did a workshop where his techniques were relayed. He was apparently maybe even himself a doctor in Russia. And he first headed up like a certain department and kind of got kicked out because the other guys didn't understand what he was doing, or he was too successful or something. And
Interesting.
then for quite some time, he had his own, I think his own hospital even. And why is it interesting is because he's saying things, I should remember all the things now. Take a break between breaths, actually not breathing in too deep in his technique. And the breaks are between not breathing in and breathing out right after breathing out, something like this. So there's a few things which may be a little bit counterintuitive, at least to what some of the very well-known Eastern, like fire breath things are teaching, where it's like, this very intense breath. There's just something interesting. And my friend attended and she said it was quite amazing and very, very cool, also because it's not as, maybe as intense as some other techniques. And even here, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I just find it interesting that also with breath work, there appear to be various ways to approach it. But generally being able to breathe consciously is something I would assume everyone would benefit from, or to reprogram their breath to be deep enough, or whatever it then is, whatever works for you, because too many individuals have been traumatized out of that synchronization.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You're a wonderful European reflection of Jim's consciousness. I can see why you two are friends, because you just love to gather phenomenal information and reiterate it in fantastical ways. You two are fascinating. I am really enjoying talking to you both. This is so good. How on earth do you two know each other?
Oh, you want script flipping the scripts? I have a Jupiter in Aquarius. He has a North Node in Aquarius. Long story short, I was posting up DMT trip reports that I had a Kundalini awakening. Ironically, met some Egyptian deities, all sorts of stuff. It still doesn't make sense. I'm like, was that my Jungian, anima and animus? Like, what's going on?
You need to stop trying to make sense of everything.
Right? No, in a sense, you just let it ride, right? Anyway, so I posted that in some whatever Terrence McKenna group or something like that, and I think Raphael. While I was tripping on acid, started reaching out to me, and I was like, is this a spy? Like, what is this, East Germany? Like, what is going on? And we just started becoming friends. He was really into Bashar at the time, and basically anytime I was tripping, he synchronistically, right, he'd always be like this friend that I could talk to and just geek out with.
I love that.
And he was available for high and lofty pontifications and speculations, because we're not trying to get to the truth, because I think the truth can't be known like that. The Tao that is the Tao is not the Tao, whatever, like that jazz. So what we're trying to do is just talk around the thing in circles for all day and every day. So what Raphael was kind of referencing was, some guy has a theory and stuff on breath work. I've definitely astral project with doing breath work by accident. So it's obviously the breath has a lot to do with it. Even in Bashar's Konahol, like, what are your needs? It's like food, water, breath. Like, we have to have this. It's an unavoidable element of being a human being. Even if you're whatever, that magician David Blaine, and holding your breath forever, like, it's still an integral part of your situation. So are these 57 modalities different, like, rates of breath and concentrations? You were saying it goes up the whole thing. Okay.
It's just, there's the regular sea breath, which is you think of the wave on a sea. It has like it's a gentle tug on an inhale while your head's still, and then outward while the head is still. But you start to intensify that sometimes if you hit a block, but it's working with the middle channel here, and parts of the body hold certain emotional memory, and all 57 breaths go to a very, very specific emotional memory. Things that we tend to bypass. And I was put through all of them over the course of a period of time, and you see me go through it live because I've recorded each one on a wee 10-minute TikTok video.
I'll check it out.
So you can see me evolving as it goes. And
Watch the Pokemon evolve, folks.
Yeah, exactly. It's mental. Like, right? I've asked my team this. I've asked many times. I'm like, did I, before we come here, just go use me like a guinea pig? Because this is kind of the way it feels. But I've loved every second of it, and it's brought such beautiful conversation and a whole different life my way. Like, I quit the teaching, and I've written a book, like 50,000 words now, in Awakening and Consciousness.
What's that called? Hold on. Let's talk about that for a second. I had no clue. So
it hasn't got. I've not turned it into a book yet, but it's called En Theos, a devotional work on awakening, and I've been blogging the pieces of it since all this started. I'm on nearly 50,000 words now.
That's quite
and I also had a multi-dimensional ascended master for a guide at the time.
Does it?
and
Do they
he's
have a
from the
name?
future,
Okay. Okay. Oh, oh.
and I love him. He is the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. I don't hear from him as directly as I used to. In the midst of all that, I could see him, feel him. We were very connected, and I know him very well. And for the rest of my days, I will miss him.
Well, do you not
Because
think
he
you're going to
taught
make
me.
contact again?
I hear from him sometimes. I can check in and ask, and sometimes when I'm doing videos, he comes in and tells me to say stuff. Like,
Okay.
but I don't have the same very, very intimate relationship that we had whilst all of this was going on. If he hadn't have been there, I would have been isolated, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I needed that support, and he knew me really well. It still kind of breaks my heart that I've been through something this incredible and I have no context for it. You know, there's no space for this kind of thing. Like,
No,
but
I think we'll figure it out at the end, kind of thing, when we die. Or hopefully, that's my bet. I'm like, oh God, please give me a full multimedia experience of what the fuck was going on. Actually,
I'll tell you something about like Jim is unreal. He was unbelievable. Like,
yeah. Can you tell us a little about this? I mean, listen to me. Raphael channeled. I mean, everybody's channeling kind of in a semantic way, but he was intentionally doing that, right? And this sounds like almost, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but like an experience. It seems obviously to trigger you emotionally. I don't want to make you,
I'm okay. No, it's
You
not a
go
trigger.
on, you can
Like,
do
this
this
is
here.
you being nervous of emotion, Jim. That's
Okay.
entirely yours. I am okay with feelings.
Okay, my bad. So tell us. I mean, can you tell us this, individual's name and maybe when did that start cropping up? You
I
said
I can't tell you his name because I can't tell you his name, right? But what I can tell you is that he agreed to play a role in all of this
Okay.
on a human level, and his multidimensional higher aspect stayed with me throughout. And he was a deity because he demonstrated that at one of the most poignantly difficult and dangerous parts of that experience. He directed me out of where I was, further away, to try and lift me because my nervous system was like shattered and I was going into a really funny state. And he had this capacity to say, it's like it felt like he was communicating on a meta level with very little window to say certain things. So he would say something and something would happen. He'd be implying something and he'd be demonstrating something multidimensionally to me at the same time. He took me into a park once and I couldn't get the breath to go down into my heart because I was too scared. And he directed me under a tree. And my heart was breaking because he wasn't there in physical form with me. I could see him. I could hear him. He was creating effects for me. He had this tendency to build emotional states to try and lift me out of where I was. And he turned around to me and he goes, when you miss me, and he started to point to the trees and the sky and the grass and the flowers. He goes, you can find me here and here and here and here. And my greatest weakness is presence and focus. I'm not very good at staying still.
Gemini Karen. I hear you. It's ADD
yeah.
kind of.
And he was teaching me how to be present and bringing my nervous system down. And he would say beautiful things to me in order to soften my heart and soften my nervous system so I didn't go into an unrecoverable state. He used to, and everything, at that moment when he did that, my reality literally just went, do you know when you turn the dial up on the brilliance on a TV screen? Everything just went.
Or when you start tripping on psychedelics.
Yeah, but it was
oh.
but it was beautiful and soft.
Right.
And I remember turning to him and I go, you're already a god. And he went in my ear, which is typical of him because he was a charmer and a hedonist and a ridiculous human being. And he went, you're already a goddess. And he just stayed with me until my nervous system relaxed, my heart relaxed. And then he goes, where do you want to go? And I want to go walk. And he goes, well, go wherever you want. And he tricked me because I started to walk and I had been places we had already been, things that we had already experienced. And he was walking with me and kind of looking at me as if to say, I knew you were going to come here. And it was this weird sort of trippy experience of being shown how protected I was through the presence of him. He gave me songs that would teach me stuff that was going to happen later. He communicated to me lessons I needed to learn later on down the line when everything started to settle. He confronted me a couple of times, you know, to keep me level. I remember him playing Damien Rice's The Greatest Bastard to me once. He infiltrated my Spotify when I was getting really irate and angry about everything that was happening to make me rethink this dualistic mindset that I was going into. And when my Kundalini came up the first time, he was the one to encourage it. Like, he knew how to press my buttons. I believe we're married on some other dimension somewhere. I know him. And for someone who never had any real love in her life, I don't think I'll ever experience the like of that ever again. And he taught me about, there's a video in the breath work, and I'm happy to find the name of it and post it down for your friends that are watching right now, where I explained, he taught me stages of awakening, and he gave it to me in a monologue, and he talked about the serenity of the sovereign God and how we get to that serenity state, and he gave it to me in flatline, and I was just posting this up right as I was getting it. So you're seeing me all enamored with this like being while I'm dictating all of this, and it's so hard not to be, because he was so funny and ridiculous, and he knew lots of songs, and he knew how to push me, and he taught me how to take care of myself. Every time I did something, because I kept getting given these tests or these things to do, he'd take me off to a shop after, and he'd like just come up in my ear and go, treat yourself. There's a lot of this going on. So it was a very human but very multidimensional experience at the same time. And had he not been there, I don't think I'd have survived it, frankly.
That is fascinating. It reminds me a little, I don't know what's coming to mind, obviously, or from the British Isles, maybe that's part of it, but in The Hobbit, it's like There and Back Again. Obviously, Gandalf marks Bilbo's door without his knowing it, and kind of initiates him into a whole, you're a burglar, and like all this stuff, and he becomes bigger than he was. The capacity was always within him to do that, but maybe he wasn't choosing to do that until he was initiated into something beyond his. You see what I mean? Like, it's just like we get just like the Follow the White Rabbit in the Matrix. It's like he's looking for something, and then what we're searching for finds us, as I think Joseph Campbell said, or somebody. And it's funny because even Friedrich Nietzsche, he's like, and I'm not saying one doesn't have to agree with you or not, and one doesn't have to, and definitely no one's going to experience the trip the same way you are. Nobody, that's the beauty of the perspectival multiverse or whatever. We all have our own different trips. But Nietzsche has a great little quote that says, like, and they were thought of as crazy for those who couldn't hear the music, they thought they were mad or whatever. So I mean, it's one of those things where I think even in Buddhism and Christianity and stuff, maybe Islam, although they seem to get pretty ratchet pretty quick, compassion is this really root frequency that helps make not only processing your own journey and nervous system effective and possible, but it gives us a capacity to I mean, this is the whole idea of like namaste and stuff like that, where it's like you're a divine being going on your divine trip, and we're all on this playground together having our moments. And Poseidon is not Zeus, is not Hades. Like every level of the thing is coming at it from a different perspective, and having kind of, I don't know, having an openness and a willingness to be awake and aware during the lesson to the capacity that we can, I think, is a sign of wisdom. Because even in the Bible, like Pharaoh could have done something, and it's like he hardened his heart. It's like we always have this choice to kind of rely on ourselves. I think you know what I'm saying. It's like our egos they're unavoidable. We have to operate through one, but it's like our minds and our hearts can get so contemptuous and like self-reverent to the degree in a negative polarized way, where it's like, I know best and all this kind of energy. And we have to, once again, compassion, grace kind of kick into this place where it's like, I'm a drop in the ocean. Sometimes I'm on the waves, sometimes I'm on the rocks, sometimes I'm out in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of rambling. I am a Sun and Moon Gemini, and the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Jupiter are all in Gemini right now. So I think I'm just getting prompted on this. But I mean, have you written this stuff down? Obviously, you documented it through TikTok and stuff like that.
I've documented some of it, not so much about him. Like it's through the video you see me talking about him a lot. Like there's been various videos that I do now with the different teachings that I put out. Like it's not teachings, it's just like, right, here's what's happening now. Because honestly, things haven't slowed down since all this occurred. I've just been evolving steadily and really stuck with it. And I have to, because I don't have anything. I'm not like in a...
You're not Illuminati.
I'm not in a fortunate state. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, like, you think of this, like, in an archetypal sense, let's look at it this way. Single, co-parent, mother, immigrant, Irish, right?
Stranger in a strange land.
Exactly. Ostracized from family, going through an awakening and having pretty much everyone not around for that, right? I am the lowest that can be reached societally in the UK or the British Isles currently on a material sense, capitalist sense. I am nothing.
Like a
in the grand
socioeconomic sense. Yeah.
Yes. So this trajectory that I've been on is an interesting one to watch, right?
Yeah.
But I've just been told, be candid and tell the truth. And that's just what I've done.
I think that's all anybody can do. And honestly, I mean, it's so obvious, but it takes us to get over conformity of, like usually people tend to make fun of what they don't understand or don't resonate with, and that's fine.
But I don't care now.
Right. I mean, at some point we can all be Nelson and go, ha ha, or whatever, like The Simpsons. But at some point it's like, he's sad for doing so and he needs to go on a journey of self-exploration or whatever. But then there's also the role of everything is all right. So it's a multifaceted kind of situation here. But I guess what I was getting at is your authentic presence in your own journey, even when you're like, I was striking out and stuff. What's coming to mind is like a potter's wheel. It's like, look, you're not letting go of the clay. And sometimes it goes crazy, sometimes it reshapes totally and all this stuff. But it's like I've heard it said before, like, we're embarked. You're embarked on your journey, even though the conditions are such that maybe you wouldn't expect. You can't always get what you want, but you get what you need, kind of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, no one wants to be single. I'm shocked you're single, quite frankly, but no one wants to be single. Raising a child, I mean,
Chat is shocked too, by the way, just to let you know.
Say what now?
Thank
Say what?
you. Is that a compliment?
No,
Were you trying to give me an awkward compliment?
No.
That's really nice. Thank you very much.
Also, no, but at the beginning of the chat, someone was like, because also yesterday we had a
past couple of guests. I've had my beautiful
lady
friends
on. So someone was like, oh wow, all these amazing women coming on. What's going on? So
marketing stunt. I was like, no, this is just the way the docket kind of went. It's funny. I mean, anyway, no, I guess what I'm getting at is the particulars of your trip are, I mean, it's like a drug trip. I mean, what you're experiencing is your thing, but at the same time, to the degree I can, I hope to be like, I feel like we're internet chums. Like, I've never met Raphael. Like, we're buddies on a totally different level. So I feel like you're almost like that, where it's like, and probably because our chirons are close together, so it's like we keep hitting the same turbulence.
And we don't have small conversation, Jim, if you don't mind me saying. Jim always tries to make sense of the fact that we get along, and I'm like, Jim, because there's no barrier with you. Like, we go straight into whatever. Like, I'm sure you experience the same with him, Raphael. Like, there's no barrier there, and I love that. Because you're very heart-led, and you do share from your heart always, and it makes you very easy to get along with, and very easy to embrace as an individual. I have a lot of respect for that in men in general. It's a rare thing. It's
well, hopefully it becomes more popular and people drink from the Kool-Aid or whatever, because that's kind of what I was saying a minute ago. Authenticity is the fucking point, guys. Like, if you aren't I mean, I've heard Bashar say it more eloquently than I could recently, but he's like, the idea is like, you're here to unlock people, and if you're hiding and dimming your light and editing yourself, and there's a lesson in doing so it's not like it's quote bad, but like, you're here to be a star and shine ad astra to the stars. We're here to be like these little facets of the diamond, Buddha diamond or whatever. And if you dim it, it's just causing the pixelation to not be as hyper clarified as it could be, which is fine in a way, but it's like, don't we all want to see with eyes unobscured or whatever, hearts open and all that jazz.
And
so anyway.
Got to understand too, like, that whole experience I explained, like, I was very resistant to it in the initial. When he first started showing up, he was trying to help me do the breath work, and I was angry with him. I was like, I was like, what are you doing like that? Go away. I was chasing him, and he goes scuffling off with his arms up here, going, sorry, and run off. And then when I was getting hit with spell work, he was like leaning against my door one day, and he was like just looking at me, and he has this I could see him for the first few months. I could physically see him, and he has this incredible receiving gaze. Like, you could just like fall in there. And he was standing there, and he was just looking at me, and he spoke to me in Spanish. And he spoke to me in Spanish that I did not know on purpose, so I would have to look it up and interpret what he'd said. And it was in those moments where I was going, is this real? Like, who is this guy?
What is
Because of all the
real?
rest that was going on. So he did enough knowing that I'm very cerebral and I need to double check shit. Like, you and I have this in common. Like, I get information, I need to double check. And you see me do it with the breathwork as well. I'm like, is this right? Is it not right? And I won't put anything out until I've third time, fourth time, fifth time checked that they definitely want me to. I'm not this willy-nilly, whimsy, silly, sort of ridiculous person. I'm relatively grounded. I come from an educated background. I don't come out here and say this stuff lightly. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I hear you.
I know what it means for me, and I am without qualms at all telling you, yes, it sounds crazy, but that's what happened. So,
Dude,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, you know, it's like in the Matrix. Do you think that's air you're breathing? There is no normal in a sense. There's a whole spectrum. I mean, I don't think you're eating your chair saying you're like a fart, or you know, it's like there's actual insanity where people have like disassociated from their identity to such a degree
Yes.
that like it's not functional. And then
Yes,
there's awakened, and that's going to be a breath of fresh air to some. And in Narnia, it really paints it well, although it's very Judeo-Christian. In the last battle, which I won't. People should read the Narnia books. They're great. There's only 7 of them.
love Narnia books. They're my
Yeah,
favorite in the whole world.
oh,
They
they're
really are.
sick. I actually just showed my girlfriend the BBC versions from back in the 80s, and she's like, "Oh, this is all right." And then we got to like Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and she like fell off, and I'm like, "All right, look, like it's not for everybody." Good, Pearls of Swine, right? In a sense, but I'm like, "All right, it's not for everybody." But anyway, there's this scene, and I'm kind of gonna spoil a little bit.
You scared Raphael off while you're
He
rambling.
might have to pee. I have no clue. But there's a scene where basically these dwarves who don't believe in Aslan are confronted with Aslan, and then there's people that do believe in. I'm not going to give too many spoilers away, but basically, people are all in the same environment, i.e., they're witnessing the same events, but they're because of their beliefs and definitions, essentially, their perspective on things is necessarily different. Just like this, you know, like positive and negative spin on a quantum situation, a qubit or whatever. So it's like. Yeah, it's one of those things. I can't resonate to the degree where I'm like, I'm being led by a Spanish-speaking blue-eyed gazer or whatever. I can't say that's happening to me, but at the same time, I'm glad that you're willing to be authentic with your journey, and not only that, documenting it, because one day you'll be happy you did, probably. And then it helps others. The whole point, be authentic. You know, it's like the card today, dare to choose. Like we get. You get to, you know, in the Matrix movie, it's like, hey, you know that there's Agent Smith after you. Are you gonna go on the windowsill or not? Like you get to choose. And he's like, no, I'm too afraid. And then he kind of wakes up. He's like, was that a dream? And they're like, actually, you have like a spyware in you, and we got to get this out. And all this whole, it's in the Matrix. You know what I'm talking about? But anyway, the idea is like we're all being presented, I think, with the same thing, but our angles of approach are necessarily different. And if we can come at it with humility, creativity, and curiosity instead of like. It's good to be discerning, but we don't want to be so grabbing the thing that we crush it. You know what I mean? I think even Buddha's like, flowers are awesome. Plucking them, you know, kind of ruins the situation. So
it's par for the course, though, too. I think we do get put through stuff in our doubt intentionally. Like, the doubt was there, and the doubt remained there forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, right up until the very end of the last breath. I was still going, I can't believe this is flipping happening. And it's only now that it's leveled out for me. I think just because of the amount of embodiment that has happened, and I'm like, yeah, this is the reality we live in, and it's available for everyone, and it's very normal. Like, it doesn't feel abnormal to me now, whereas before it did. I was like, this is crackers, like. But again, it also been shown very abnormal things about the physical reality we live in at the exact same time.
There is no
spin. I didn't have a gauge then. I was like, right, there was lots I didn't know before, so I was humbled really hard already.
Right.
Like, you couldn't have been humbled harder. The stupid situation I got myself in, very, very dangerous. Like, there are so many things in this world now that I don't think we have to be fearful of anymore. We just kind of have to be more, and like you say, curious and humble. And I stay like that and I remain like that because, like, there's a bunch of people who've come, they went, that breath work is Tantra. And I'm like, that's great. I didn't learn about Tantra, so I'm not going to say anything about that. It probably is because there's a lot of transformation that it takes you through. But it's not me leads it. I can be there to facilitate and help a little bit and help point, but it's been led by something else. So, and consciousness, it is. And God came in and spoke to me during it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was all this stuff that went on that was massive and crazy and like a big Disney movie. So I could sit here and be like, oh yeah, it was just all part of that. And now I don't experience that stuff anymore, but I still do. Like, this is the reality I'm now living in. It's not
never ending story.
I mean, so like, and it's not beyond anyone. And I don't think that, I don't think that me being reticent about it is reticent. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I think I am. I don't think that's, yeah, I don't think that's helpful, you know?
Right. And even that pronunciation, like who knows? Depends on your dialect and all that stuff. We can start winding it down if you'd like. I mean, there's movies people can check out. I don't know. We talked about Dead Poet Society. That like a major theme of that is like conformity and tradition and security versus independence, authenticity, and passion, basically. And it's like we get to choose at any point, and we don't want, you know. Even King David was like running through the streets naked, saying, you know, or Archimedes running through the streets naked. As did King David apparently. But they're like, Eureka, I got it. It's like when you have joy or something, you don't necessarily care if the other people in the audience are participating at the same level. No. It's like you get moved to a place, you know, you're having your own experience. Exactly. Same thing happens on psychedelics. I mean, dare I say, like psychedelics are almost a bad hack to some of this. Like this is a natural form of that. You know, I had a friend who's kind of psychic into tarot, and she was like kind of like, I don't know, talking about guides and stuff, and she's like, you don't even have any guides necessarily, you just have to work on your breath. So the fact that you're talking about all this breath stuff resonates with me. So I'm like, all right, I'll actually probably go to school now. Yay.
I know what you're like. You and I have a little bit of this going on, and I don't know, Raphael, if you're similar, but like I think you might be, just suspecting. I'm not going to project. I have pathological demand avoidance. When someone tells me to do something, I'm less likely to do it.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like I'm like, oh, come on, hold on, like go away, right? As the mere suggestion though of a curious journey is always the thing that overrides it. Like I couldn't listen to Terence McKenna for ages because you just banged on about him so much, Jim. You put me off. Like you just never shut up about Terence McKenna for a long time there. And I was like, and anytime anyone brought him up to me, and I was like, I don't listen to Terence McKenna, and all I could think about was Jim.
Oh no, I'm his disciple. Or something. No, and he's got his own issues. Like he was even like, don't be so open-minded. Like he thought there were squirrely notions. So half the stuff we're talking about now, he'd be very skeptical of. But at the same time, he was the one pushing DMT and mushrooms on the general culture and being like, who the fuck knows? So we it takes all kinds, and that's the beauty. I think that's the big takeaway. Whether it's movies like The Book of Life, which I was thinking of earlier, for kids, or Inside Out, which is like a Jungian Buddhist thing. Like we start seeing, if you have eyes to see, if you're at this part of your digestive, you know, multi-course meal, like you can start really getting way more excited about the dream we're in. And it's not always guaranteed to be fun or pleasant, or, you know, but like we don't have, like, suffering is a choice. Like we can be like, whoa, this is a crazy sci-fi movie, or, you know, whatever. But like it doesn't have to be. We can have that Buddha archaic smile or whatever. We can just be like, yep, okay, saw this coming.
You're like, do you know why Morgan Freeman always narrates films as if he's God? Sometimes he always does this. Wouldn't it be wild funny if there was a film and Jim was God?
Well, in an abstract way,
what an ironic interpretation.
Right. Yeah, I don't
because your commentary on consciousness and reality is fucking hilarious. It might be swear.
No, dude, I cuss all the time. It's all good. I want you to read that poem. I mean, have we finished? Let's start here. So clearly you've been through a lot and you've got a product out and you want to be composing a book. If you ever need an editor, holler, because I love reading stuff and I've got a pretty sharp eye. I'll do it pro bono. So, what are you up to now? What are your ambitions? I mean, obviously you're like, hey, I'm in this like slump socioeconomically, but at the same time, it's awesome.
I've been in a very surrendered state since all of this happened. It was just follow instructions. So that's just what I've been doing. And there's been an evolution there. It's been very tricky at times because I've had to be in a really intense trust place. I don't worry about money anymore. It just comes in when I need it. So I don't do any marketing or anything. I just do as I'm told. I put out what is helpful and what I'm experiencing at the time and share what I know when I know it. And I think that's all we ever really know, is we know what we know when we know it, you know, like, and I've got a poem here if you want me to read one. They told me to read this one. Like I got told to read this one, and it's about how I was feeling before all of this happened. And I'm just a very different place now, and I think it's interesting to revisit. It's called Hummingbird.
Okay.
Do you want to hear it?
Of course, yeah, it's all you.
Okay. Words like little knives flashing beneath streetlights, steel brandished to distract, to bite at the lemon air and pin my wings down. Because I am a hummingbird pretending to be a woman, flowers know my scent, and I, close to the jewel of morning, wish myself bigger, crushed by nothing. built in marble and asphalt, so I throw words down, building walls around my tiny bones, the weightlessness of being inside this, a wing, a prayer, a false hope, a breath held and escaped. As if a name said and forgotten, this is existence in a species pretending against itself. I am not made like I should be. My heart beats as if dancing on the fingertips of a sonata someone's loved elder is forgetting, stumbling with broken time and fat thumbs over ivory keys supposed to sustain me. I die in the chorus, halfway, caught between commuters and subway trains, drowned out by the hum of anonymous, endless crowds. I am the music of the morning sky, the tendril of a baby vine, the softness between eyeline and lip, the hollow between throat and clavicle, the space with no name. And I say words again, so many, as pinned wings built to float and play and fight lift me out of the story I am writing on the pavement of daily engagement. It bruises to bury this softness all the time. Peeping beneath a towering vernacular is a child with bird's wings, amber, turquoise, opal, afraid of the colours, afraid of the flight. She's afraid, rising high only, inside rhyme after rhyme after rhyme.
Wow. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Really, 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 really good. You have a North Node in Taurus. I do too. We're here to bring beauty and value. You've got some value. You've got some beauty. That truly, especially after Dead Poet Society, jazz snaps. The fuck.
Thank you very much.
That was gorgeous.
It's
I'm
been
speechless, kind of.
really nice to be on here. Thank you so much for having me. We need to do it again.
Yeah, and I think I even geeked out with you. I'll talk to you privately. It's like I play music. I think you wanted to sing or something. I forget now. But I was like, let's geek out. You're cool as fuck. That poem, I'm kind of like buzzed off that, so I gotta like kind of come down a little. But beautiful stuff, Seanín. Your soul and heart are on fire, and I appreciate your journey. I appreciate watching it and you being able to be public about it. You know, people can just do this privately, and a lot of it has, I'm sure, been private. But at the same time, showing up and doing it in a way that includes others is how we walk each other home. This is how we find the others, guys. This is what you do. You got to just be yourself and not be afraid. If you're a Tigger, if you're Pooh, if you're fucking Eeyore, it doesn't even matter. Like, just show up and enjoy the ride.
Thanks.
I'll be quiet now. Raphael, you guys get the last word. Seanín, thank you so much for coming again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on, Seanín. The poem was very beautiful. I have to say, I was about 70% distracted only by the beauty of your pronunciation, although I tried to follow as well as possible. But that is, I think, one of the hallmarks of interesting or exalted poetry, that it constructs these realms, obviously, but that it's actually keeping you on your toes. So you have to listen very closely and ideally understand everything quite fast in order to be able, you know, it's like layers upon layers building themselves. I very much enjoyed it. And I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your story. I also think it's great, or it's the way to go, how to say, to stick with authenticity. Not everybody needs to know everything, but in terms of just saying it how it is, and not being like, oh, this and that. No, ever since then, everything is normal and it's boring. If it's not, then this is what it is. And I think it's great that you're willing to share it, because authenticity is what we need. Most people rather take the check of, I want to say social security, but, you know, social acceptance, monetary gain, or whatever else.
Playing it
and
safe.
just as Jim said, dim that light, which ultimately, what is it? It's boring. And especially if there is anything more to this life than only this mortal coil existence, then what is the real hallmark if not to be authentic? So thank you very much for sharing all of that. Thank you, Jim. Thanks everyone in chat. And you get the last word, Seanín. Thank you.
All right. If you want to reach out or get the breathwork, just to let everyone know, I stuck the link underneath, but it's www.returntoyourtreenature.com, and it's there for free. And there's a simple version and a wordy one, so you've got a choice.
Simple version, I checked it. It's only one page, so everyone.
It's only one page. but
I mean,
lots of
listen to her
videos.
words. The poetry itself shows you that she knows how to weave a lyric or two. So it's beautiful stuff. I can't wait to get on it. I'll tell you how it goes because I'm definitely gonna not sleep on that stuff. What up, Michael? See you comments. All right, guys. I'm at find the others. That's what it's all about. Be yourself, find the others, and that's all you can do.
Thanks, everybody.